Well, it takes 4 years to come around, and it's a long wait. But when it's almost at kickoff, you start feeling the excitement in your body because the World Cup is about to kick off. The 2026 World Cup is about to kick off, and this is our official preview here at Charley. Subscribe and then click to like our content here on this program. In the next 30 minutes or so, what we are going to do is to have our own exclusive overview and preview of the World Cup from the most unique sources with the most insightful analysis concerning this. Unfortunately, in the build-up to this World Cup, most of the news have been off-the-field issues with rejection of referee Atan, Africa's #1 referee from Somalia, topping the list of off-the-field news items that have dominated the headlines in the build-up towards the World Cup itself. At kickoff, will the news on-field dominate the news off-field? Or perhaps we are in for more surprises. Well, today we'll spend most of the time talking largely about what's going to happen on field, and I have two guests with me who are more than knowledgeable and have enough insights in these things to give us perspectives as far as this is concerned. I'm joined by James Wokabi, a colleague for many years now. He's sitting in somewhere in Nairobi and joining us. He's seen enough World Cups within his time to not be swayed by just the optics. James, thank you very much for joining us. You are the man who is going to tell us how this World Cup is going to go. You are not an octopus or any other things, but I expect that you know who will win which matches. Thanks a lot for joining me.
You know, it may seem a bit extreme, but I don't think so. We've got to stand together as a continent.
Well, there was a generation of leaders who decided to boycott the World Cup, and recently in doing a documentary, I was investigating the position taken by Nkrumah at the time, and it was because just one World Cup slot had been allocated to Asia, Oceania, and Africa, and they simply said, well, you can sort of and have your World Cup. We will not participate in that World Cup. And that World Cup was probably Ghana's best chance within that golden generation of reaching the World Cup, but they agreed and they all backed off. But that was a generation of heroes. I don't know what to call this generation. James, what have you made of CAF's reaction? Because somehow the discussion is moved from the decisions by the Americans to deny this referee the visa and FIFA's inability to intervene to CAF's apparent silence and inability to react in a way that unites or assures Africans. What do you make of this?
Sammy, the dice was cast a few years ago. Over the last few years, maybe three, four, CAF hasn't been the CAF of Issa Hayatou. It's been a whole different CAF. The CAF of Issa Hayatou stood its ground. The CAF of Issa Hayatou stated what they wanted. They pushed for their own agenda. But over the last 4 or 5 years, CAF has essentially become a department of FIFA. If you look at it, if you see how it's been working, if you look at the African Nations League, they couldn't do the Super League in Europe. They did one in Africa, the Africa Football League. If you look at all those decisions made over the past few years, CAF has almost lost that autonomy. That autonomy that used to make CAF be so important to Blatter getting re-elected. The current CAF essentially sings the song that FIFA sings. So am I surprised that even when the referee can't make it to the World Cup, all CAF will say, oh, you know, they'll just look the other way? No, I am not surprised because this has been the song over the past few years. So yes, the coach is right. There should be a reaction from Africa. Coach Nana is right, but I feel the current setup, the way everything is right now, is not really the kind of way where you'd expect a CAF to be going all out and CAF to be saying this can't happen, this can't. No. I did not expect it. Exactly what has happened now has happened is exactly what I thought it would happen. And it's not the first time, Sammy. When they had the World Athletics Championships in Oregon in 2022, the same thing happened. It seems to be, it's something that happens when the US is concerned where for some reason, their rules are their rules and they do not want to bend them for anyone, whether it's the referee, whether it's the athletes. It just seems to be something that the US of A do, and it's something that the rest of the world just accepts because it's almost like there is no choice.
Atan is back home. He's been received like a hero. He says what happened was unfortunate, and he's grateful for the support that FIFA has given him, and he's urged his supporters to stand behind his country. Actually, it looks like he's become more popular in the last few days because of this decision to block his entry than before. Today, the day before the World Cup, FIFA has started releasing a list of referees to referee, so it's definitely gates closed for him, and he won't get the chance to be the first Somalian referee to referee at the World Cup. Okay, so let's just move the discussion along a bit, because we are talking CAF. Let's start by looking at the African Challenge, and it's an interesting one because we've been participating in this World Cup for years now. This is the first time we are going to have 10 teams in the World Cup. Nana, is there any strength in the numbers? Does 10 necessarily mean that Africa will do well? Because in recent years, apart from 2 tournaments, African teams either crash out in the first round of the World Cup, or only one would usually advance, and only 3 have made it to the quarterfinals. Cameroon in 1990, Senegal in 2002, Ghana in 2010, and then finally there was a semi-final run by Morocco in 2022. Is Africa's fortune about to be greatly enhanced at this World Cup?
I don't think so. I don't think so. It's not about the numbers so much. It's about the quality of the players. And to be perfectly honest with you, the real talent, the real quality are representing different countries and not representing Africa. And they should. And if we have the opportunity of having those talents representing the countries that they are origins of, then I think having 10 countries there would be a different thing altogether. But as it stands right now, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. But I think there's enough there to make a wave, a significant wave. Even if 50% can get through to the round of 32, I think that will be good. But no, I don't think it's enough. And I don't think it's about the numbers. It's about the quality. It's about the players that are being there. And the players that our African teams are going to face, many of those teams are even African teams. I mean, you look at France and various other teams, you know, their star players are Africans. I remember when Ghana played Austria, the kingpin in that Austrian team was a Ghanaian. Kevin something, I forgot what his name, Kevin Danso. He plays for Tottenham. He was the guy who was pulling the strings left, right, and centre, distributing the ball here, there, and everywhere. And he didn't play for Ghana. But he was the man of the match for me. He was a Ghanaian. He is a Ghanaian. But he didn't play for Ghana. And I think that's the type of thing we're going to come up against as this tournament progresses. You know, it's the African players that are going to stand out. But they're going to stand out for other countries, apart from countries that are based in the African continent. And it's a shame because, I mean, we should be doing
If anybody
something.
has to be aggrieved, it will be the Kenyans, because they never had Divock Origi playing for them. Yeah, and James was here.
Sammy, if I'm honest, I think Divock made the right choice, because if he played for Kenya, I'm not sure what would have turned him out to be. So I think he made the right choice. And here's the thing. Maybe what the Coach Nana is saying about all these players opting to play for France and for Belgium and for Austria and for Germany, maybe it's also just a reflection of what we are, because the few stories we've heard of these players wanting, even the ones who wanted to play for the continent, the stories we hear are all really, really sad stories of how they tried, but we kept putting obstacles in their way. So yes, maybe it's a wake up call. Maybe it should be a word for us to sit back and think, as a continent, what should we do so that Kevin Danso is playing for Ghana? What should we do so that Uaderago, who's joined the German national team, is not playing for Die Mannschaft, but is playing for an African team? Maybe that's the question. Bukayo Saka, Eberechieze should be playing for the Super Eagles. In fact, some of them did go to those trials that the Super Eagles do, then the clinics they do in England. So maybe it's also just a wake-up call of how do we also give them something worth them wanting to play for us? Or are we seated back on our side saying, oh, you need to do this, you need to do this. So maybe we should also look at it that way and say, you know what? Kylian Mbappe should be playing for Cameroon or for Algeria. But he's playing for Leblanc.
James,
he's playing for France.
Yes. The great Pele, widely regarded as the greatest player ever to play football, and indeed, he's won 3 World Cups out of 4 World Cups that he participated in, famously said, an African nation, and I quote, will win the World Cup before the year 2000. Am I that too old? Just being cynical, but it's been 26 years since the year 2000. An African team has not even been to the final of the World Cup. And this year we have Algeria, Cape Verde, Cote d'Ivoire, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Egypt, Ghana, Morocco, Senegal, South Africa, and Tunisia lining up in various groups. Your honest take on just how far African teams can go in this competition. What's the African challenge like?
Sammy, with some luck, we might get maybe 3 or 4 into the round of 32. Because the round of 32, you need what? A win. You need 3 points. With 3 points, you more or less can get in. So I think if you're looking at the round of 32, we could get a few. I would assume maybe the usual suspects, Senegal might make it. You think about the Ivory Coast might make it. Algeria, I think, have a decent enough chance to make it. You look at Morocco, maybe, because you just need the 1 win. So round of 32, which again, because of the new setup of the World Cup, doesn't even, I mean, what we used to put getting out of group stages, the kind of premium we put to getting out of group stages is no longer that because the tournament is long winding. So getting out of the group, with some luck, we should be able to get maybe 4 get out of it. The 4 big ones would get out of it. There are a few who I think have very little chance of getting out of it. I think South Africa in a terrible group. I think they will struggle with it, regardless of how much they are looking forward to it. Tunisia never give us anything. So I'm not sure they will give us anything again. They almost never. Egypt also, it's very, very underwhelming. Never won a game at the World Cup. So, and they're in a toughish group. So I'm not sure about what Cape Verde will do. DRC also in a toughish group because they've got Portugal and they've got Colombia. But maybe 4. Let me be optimistic and say 4 might get to the round of 32. I think the main task is whether they can get into round of 16 and whether they can get into the quarterfinals. Now, that's where I think it's really, really, really tough, especially because African teams generally don't build on it. Morocco would have been a safe bet to go as far, maybe all the way to the quarters, but they changed their coach 5 months to the tournament. So when I look at it, I think maybe 4 to get to the round of 32. If Ghana can beat Panama, they could get to the round of 32. But then to get to the round of 16 and to the quarterfinals, that's the tough bit. And I agree with the coach. We also don't have an outstanding African team. We would have Ghana in 2010. We would have Senegal in 2002. When you look at the current teams, do you see an outstanding African team, a team that looks primed to go all the way? I don't.
There's an interesting, rather disturbing trend that I've observed, which is that in all the years that African teams broke new ground and went quite far in the World Cup, at the very next World Cup, Africa generally flopped. So Cameroon goes to quarterfinal. Everybody's saying in 1994, well, Africa will go far. Cameroon second round lost. Nigeria second round, loss of concentration. Italy kicks them out. That's as far as an African country went. And then 1998, they were supposed to come back stronger, do well at the group stage. And then they get kicked out by Denmark because they are thinking about Brazil in the quarterfinal stage, right? And then you come to 2002 when Senegal did what they did and could have even gone to the semifinal. And after that tournament, we went into the 2006 tournament. Everybody expected Africa to build on that. Only Ghana got to the second round stage and lost to Brazil. And then Ghana gets to the 2010 World Cup quarterfinal. Everybody says, well, next tournament, we are going to the semifinal. Brazil 2014 was a show for Ghana. And only Algeria made it to the next round and then flattered to the seat. So there's this trend that Africa struggles to top an outstanding performance from a previous tournament. And already some of the factors that people raise are coming up, Nana, and I'll ask you this. Senegal's coach didn't want to get onto the plane initially because he said his contract, which had expired, had not been sorted out. And we know that between bonus rows and disagreements and administrators messing up, and whatever else, loss of concentration, showmanship, and all of that, it just has a way of making us feel at this World Cup. From your view as a coach, and then I remember you 2006 around the Ghana team watching us make our debut. What do we have to correct in this World Cup, really, as Africans, based on this background that I've given?
Well, we've got a lot of culture. We've got a lot of color. We're dynamic in the most unconventional of ways. We've got a lot of talent, but we've been unable to blend it together in a way that will pose a significant threat, that will put us in a position to take this World Cup. Because for me, once we take the World Cup once, it should remain in Africa. It should remain there because the talent is here. And all these other countries are camping in Africa, doing their scouting here and there. They're spending a lot of money in Africa to recruit our players as young as they possibly can and take the top stars from various countries in order to build their own teams up so that they look good, so that they can perform on European and international stages. I don't know what we'll offer this time round. I'm hopeful. As I said earlier, I think 50% should go through to the next round. But you never know. You never know. I know we're dynamic. I know we're vibrant. And one of the things that still sticks in my mind is that the last AFCON, where our motto was, we play different. And that sure rang a bell right the way around the world with what happened at the final. We do play different. And sometimes I think it's that lack of conformity in the way how we do things, trying to create, a new wheel when the wheel has been there since Adam. This is what poses the biggest challenge for us, seriously. Because you don't hear anything with the European teams, or the coach hasn't been paid, he hasn't had his contract, administrators dominating the whole thing. Look, we've got a squad of 26, and there are 24 officials accompanying a squad of 26. Why? I mean, and even some of them are getting over 60,000. I don't know if they call it appearance fee or whatever, but they're being paid 60,000. $60,000 for doing what? Doing what exactly? It's lousy. Look,
The Ghana coach had them change the venue for the training. He said they weren't getting enough privacy. Too many people around the team.
Look, 6 weeks to the World Cup, we were then changing our coach. He came into Accra with a lot of fanfare. We even played the national anthem for him. 6 weeks to the World Cup. We're not serious. We're not serious, Sammy. We're not serious. And we expect, just on the appointment of a single coach who's been to the World Cup 4 times, that he'll be able to turn our team around. And as the president of the GFA said, we will go and win the World Cup. They're delusional. Seriously, they're absolutely delusional. They need medical attention. Seriously. And this is the thing about it. They're not conforming. They're not conforming to the way football is played. Look, we've had the minister of sports and recreation in one of these big churches collecting prayers and blah, 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 and seemingly saying that because he's received this blessing and the team has received the blessing, that we're going to win the World Cup. I beg. I've not seen this before. And this is the reason why we challenge ourselves before we even see the opponents. We're challenging ourselves before we meet the opponents. You cannot win an international competition such as the World Cup on this basis. You can't. The wheel has been created. Conform to that wheel. It's science. Football is a science. It's an art. There are so many things that football is that we don't conform to, but yet we make all these bold speeches. We're going to win the World Cup. How are we going to do that? Even if we were playing against ourselves, we'd still not win the World Cup. You know, I mean, we don't take things serious enough in Africa. We really need to sit up. CAF, we need everybody out of CAF, just in the same way as we need everybody out of the GFA. They do not know what they are doing. Look, we've played one friendly, and many other countries have played 2 and 3. We played one. We couldn't even organize 2 friendlies. We couldn't even organize 2 friendlies after getting a coach 6 weeks before the World Cup. We played one friendly against Wales. Wales, I could see the pattern. I could see what the coach is building. He needed another friendly to fine-tune everything. We can't even do that. But yet they're taking 60,000 for attending.
We could spend the whole day talking about the African challenge and particularly the Ghana situation. Ghanaians are falling a bit as far as their expectation is concerned. Fingers crossed ahead of kickoff. But let's just move it along briefly and look generally at the tournament. The big boys are here. Argentina is trying to defend their title, but the fact remains that since 1962, no team has successfully defended the World Cup. And Brazil did it. They won it in 58 in Sweden. And then they came to Chile and defended it in 1962, same continent. Some say that, and indeed, the South Americans have a 100% record in North America, because anytime the tournament has been staged in either Mexico or the United States or America, it's been won by South American countries, either Brazil or Argentina. So let's just look briefly at the big boys. James, who are your favorites for this tournament? There are a few names to go around. Where will you put smart money?
Sammy, again, a really open World Cup. Not a really open World Cup with maybe 4 or 5 teams that can win it. Smart money or logic says you pick on the European champions, Spain. Maybe they have the most balanced team. You look at Spain, you think they could do something. Then you look at France and you think if N'Golo Kante can play like a 25-year-old rather than a 35-year-old, then they have a big chance because they have a wonderful forward line. But maybe their central midfield, not as strong. So you look at them, you think they could be there. I like the look of England, and I like the look of England purely because it's a very un-England-like team compared to before. They have a coach who's not English. They have a coach who's German, who they cannot trust, but who has gone with his way. I think they could be a team that could go out there and do it. So when I look at it, I'm not seeing an outright favorite, the way you go into Brazil 2014 and we all thought Germany are going to win it, or we liked the look of France in 2018. I just feel like there is the very good teams, then there's a few teams that maybe could do something if something works their way. I don't think Argentina do very well because they could be one of the oldest teams, or at least of the big teams in the place. And Messi is a lot more older than he was 4 years ago. I think Cristiano is Portugal's biggest problem. Carrying him, I think, sort of holds the team back. Otherwise, they have got a wonderful midfield, a solid defense, but I'm not quite sure that a 41-year-old outfield player is going to win the World Cup. So really, really open. But if I have to put my money on someone, it would be Spain, it would be France. It would be the traditional ones: Spain, France, Germany, England, and a word for Don Carlo Ancelotti. If he can get this Brazil team to play well, it's a long time since Brazil went into any World Cup as favorites. So they would be sort of my dark horses to speak. The team who maybe can pull a surprise because, like you said, wonderful record in the Americas, won it in 70, won it again in 1994. So they would be my dark horses, but the main guys would be the usual: Spain, France, and maybe Germany. Yeah.
Somebody said that this tournament has an old man problem because some of the key players are old. Cristiano Ronaldo is as old as he is now. Messi is not the Messi before he's an old man. Modric is quite old coming into this team, and we have a bunch of 30-plus-year-olds in both the Argentine and the Brazil teams, and they will be up against the fresher European teams who seem to have more balance, seem to have much younger players coming into this team. Nana, has any of these teams caught your fancy? Who do you think will be winning this World Cup? Because the South Americans, until Argentina won it last time, had a torrid time against the Europeans, who have dominated this competition since Brazil won this in 2002. So where is it going? I'm not sure you would say Africa or Asia. So it looks like a straight fight between the South Americans and the Europeans.
Well, you know something? I like Japan. I'm telling you, Japan plays some football there. It's serious ball. It's serious ball. Neglect them at your peril. I like Japan, and they're like a dark horse. No one's talking about them or anything like that. You wait till they get on the field. Did you see what they did to England? Yeah. It was only 1-0. But look, England couldn't have a look in. They couldn't get a look in. So I like them. Of course, the traditional teams, the Spain, even Portugal can have a look in. The Holland team isn't bad. The German team is still mechanical, but you never know. I won't say England, because I think they've really struggled. And I tell you, one of the biggest factors that's going to affect the Europeans, it's the heat. It's the heat in this competition that's really going to, test people. And I saw a couple of images from a training session that England had. Trust me, they were struggling. You can't acclimatize within 10 days. You can't. And run up and down and jump and hop and skip. And no.
But is that not a general problem? Because most of our players play in Europe. They haven't had the time to come back and acclimatize.
That's true.
They're more used to this.
Yeah, that's also true. So football is going to talk. I think the Spanish are okay. Spain is lovely and hot.
Yeah.
I think the Spanish are okay. The Portuguese are okay. Germany, it's a bit different. England, they're sweltering. Holland isn't too bad. The Japanese definitely can take it, because their focus is a total different focus from everybody else. If I was to talk about the most disciplined team in this World Cup, it's the Japanese. And you only have to go to Japan and see the lifestyle. That discipline is reflected in the babes and the sucklings. The way how they do things. No, seriously, you've got to take it serious. So their approach to the entire game is totally different to every other country that is there. I mean, okay, with the Moroccans, it's hot in Morocco, but they may suffer from overconfidence because they've dominated Africa now, haven't they? They're the kings of Africa, basically. And if we've got any tournaments going, everybody goes up to Morocco because the infrastructure is second to none. And even if we didn't have this World Cup going on right now, there will be so many European countries that would be trooping to Morocco for their pre-season. But I think they may overshadow themselves with too much confidence.
Well, for those who believe in statistics and perhaps fate, the frightening statistics for those who support Brazil is that they waited 24 years after winning the trophy in 1970 to win it in America in 1994. And it's been 24 years since they last won this in Asia. So somebody will think, well, 24 years then, another 24 years now. Perhaps it's going to happen for them in the heat of the United States of America. But that said, let me just throw a question to the both of you. In terms of the quality that we will see, to what extent will the long European season that has just ended affect the quality? And let me explain. The last summer had the FIFA World Clubs Championships, and some of these top players, PSG players, Chelsea players, we had them playing throughout. Now, I know people have been obsessively poring over player numbers. When the Ghana team was named, they were talking how many minutes this guy has played. And for me, and I like to call this the analyst toolkit, it's tricky to mention national team performances by club statistics because they've had a long season. So from a journalist's perspective, James, players are pretty much exhausted, flattened out by a long season, and they are going to play in this heat. The difference between this and the 2022 tournament was that it was mid-season. They had pre-season, kicked off the season for 3 months. Players were fresher, and so they went into the tournament with a lot of energy. So just how much will the long season affect the quality of play, given the climatic conditions that Nana has just spoken about as well?
Sammy, before I get to that, just a statistic, you spoke about the 24 years. The Germany team gets to a final every 12 years. So that's also something
Checkmate.
to think about. They get to a final every 12 years. So who knows whether this is going to be theirs. As for the quality, I think this World Cup, it depends because you only get into the serious business once you get to the round of 16. I have a feeling there'll be a lot of friendly looking like games at the start of the World Cup because, like I said, with 3 points, you're through to the next round. So I feel like the first few games are going to be very friendly like. They will look like friendlies for the most part. And then when we get to the round of 32, then maybe we start to see serious business. Shall we see wonderful football? I hope so. I really, really hope so. I am hoping we do not get... I'm hoping it can be similar to 94 World Cup. 94 World Cup was hot. But there was a lot of interesting and high-energy games. If you think about it, whether it's Brazil, Sweden, whether it's the Netherlands versus Brazil, there was a lot. The final was a damp squib, but there was quite a number of exciting games. I'm hoping we can see that. I'm hoping the fact that football in general seems to have evolved a bit in the last few years. I hope we can see it, but do not be lied to. We'll have a lot of especially in the group stages. There's going to be a lot of games where there's a lot of rotation, and maybe we only get the actual serious football, really good football, when we get to the knockout stages.
Now you've coached players at the end of a long season. They are gassed, they are knackered, and that's why we have such a huge number of players who are pulling out injured and being replaced in this tournament. A lot of hamstrings and a lot of torn muscles and a lot of ACLs and all sorts of other injuries. We even have players who are not likely to play the first 2 or 3 matches. Brazil are still hanging on to Neymar. We know he might not even play at the group stages. Argentina has a few injuries that they are dealing with. Many other teams have injuries that they've just decided to accommodate until they get to the latter stages of the tournament, because this tournament is also bigger. It's 48 teams. How do you reckon the season would affect the quality of play? Just the exertions.
I think the quality will still be there. They're footballers. This is their job. This is what they're paid to do. And this is the biggest stage. This is the biggest world stage ever. I think the quality will undoubtedly still be there. Not denying there will be tired limbs, but the science of football. I saw a video when we were on the plane. Ghana national team were on the plane, and they were putting on like not a surgical stocking. It was much more than that. It was like I don't even know how to describe it, but they zipped it all up and it was connected electronically and whatever and blah blah blah. The guy was saying, right, you do 1 hour in there. He had both legs zipped up right to the thigh, and they were all going to do 1 hour in there. And it's all about recovery. And they're just on a flight. So the science of football has taken the game further, whereby where you anticipate tired limbs and all this and the various degrees of injuries, there are appliances that have been brought into the game that help players and their muscles and everything to recover much more quickly than before. And it's much deeper than just going into an ice bath as well. It's much more sophisticated. So I think the quality will still be there. Yes, a few players will have ups and downs and the knocks will be there and what have you. But I think I share what has been said. Yeah, the first round might be a little lackluster. I don't think it will in the Ghana-England match, but other matches may be a little lackluster because the big boys know they're going to go through to the round of 16, and that's where they're going to turn the heat up. But I think the quality, there's no doubt about the quality not being there. The quality is going to be there. And,
Well, if
and
you're
if we
Ghana
don't,
and your first match is Panama, you can't afford lackluster. It's your shootout to get your 3
well,
points before
there
you
again,
face
yeah.
England and Croatia. Final questions for the both of you. It's double-barreled. First one is, who do you expect to emerge as the best player in this tournament? And as a final parting question, what will US, Mexico, and Canada 2026 likely to be best remembered for? Who wants to go first?
Well, I'll go first because I have no idea on the first question. I have absolutely no idea. I mean, everyone's touting Lamine Yamal, but he could go out there and suffer from stage fright. He's just a young kid. He's not the Pele type of that we know. He didn't suffer from stage fright, but this guy might suffer from stage fright because he's also overconfident. Look at the things he does in his personal life. He's stretched things a bit too far, but he's still a very good player. I don't know who's going to shine the best in this tournament. And as far as the USA, Canada, and Mexico goes in this tournament, at the moment, it's got a bitter taste in my mouth because of what has happened to our Somalian referee, because of what has happened to the Iranians, because of what has happened to the Senegalese. And I think even the Sweden national team, their main striker, has been denied entry as well. So at the moment, I've got this sour taste in my mouth. Until I start seeing the football, I don't know what's going to happen. Because right now, all I can think about is, CAF being some footstool to FIFA and FIFA being as corrupt as they were when Blatter was there. So, I don't really know.
On the Senegal situation, though, let me just say that Senegal have clarified that they opted not to go through regular immigration checks and go straight onto the tarmac. So the authorities then decided to do the immigration checks on the tarmac, hence the photos that we saw, because of the options they went for. But that said, James, do you know who would emerge as the best player, and what would you predict this tournament will be best remembered for?
Let's start with best player. I have a feeling this is an Arsenal kind of World Cup, where the sum total of the individuals make up the team that then goes on to win. Now, why do I say that? Kylian Mbappe, one of the best players at the last World Cup. He's had a weird season at Madrid. Things not quite going according to plan. Lamine Yamal, like Coach Nana said, well, youngster did well at the Euros, but again, going to the World Cup on the back of an injury. So how good is he? He spoke about the old men. Is it Cristiano at 41? Is it Messi? Is it Neymar if he can get fit? So there seems like I have a feeling it's going to be it's more of a team game. It's who's got the best team, who's got the team with the least weaknesses, who's got the most solid team, rather than having a standout player. Well, Erling Haaland could say one of the best players in the world, but then it's with Norway. So how much can Norway go? How far can they go? A Harry Kane, maybe the best striker in the world currently, but then like Coach Nana said, never quite sure about England. Footballers have been going home since 1996. Will it go home? So I feel it's going to be more of a team game. The team that has the best team, the least weaknesses, that has the best average in quality of players, I think will do well. As for the tournament, the build-up has been typical of a World Cup in recent years. Go back to Qatar 2022. Was it Germany? Was it Denmark with their protests? Was it all the stories about what was happening to the workers? So much in the build-up about the tournament that maybe wasn't positive. You go back to South Africa 2010, so much negativity in the build-up to the World Cup. We go back even to Brazil 2014, a bit of negativity, but once the first whistle goes and the football plays, it all turns into a carnival. And the one thing the Americans know how to do, you've got to give it to them, they know how to come out in entertainment. Just watch all their sports. whether it's basketball, whether it's American football, whether it's hockey, they have a way to come out and party. And I think that in the end is going to take it over. So there will be all these stories in the build-up, but I am hoping, like Coach Nana said, once the football starts, the entertainment can start and we can enjoy the World Cup more, because the build-up has been far from perfect.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, and we look forward to the kickoff, and hopefully the kickoff shifting attention from off the field onto on the field, and the entertainment beginning, so that at the end we can say, "Are you not entertained?" We'll see what happens. Thank you very much, James. All the way from Kenya is way past your bedtime. And Nana, thank you very much for joining us here for the World Cup VAR, and we'll keep an eye on everything that's happening on this World Cup as far as this channel is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sammy. Thank you.
So that's your World Cup VAR preview of the 2026 World Cup, which is taking place in Mexico, the United States, and Canada. Subscribe to our content and join us. Every morning we'll drop your breakfast review of what's happening at the World Cup for you. Plus, we have so much other content here on Charley. So stick and stay with us as we bring you the very best from the 2026 World Cup.